that was good to see Monday night. But no, I mean the defense. Deontay Banks had 12 tackles. Very surprised that he was leading the squad with that. Loved it. Love that Azeez Ojulari got involved with a half a sack with a sexy Dexy. That was good. I mean, he's on the injury report this week, of course, shocker, but still had a great game against the Packers. Really kind of made Jordan Love feel uncomfortable in this game. That's what I really like to see. And it's definitely keeping Wink Martindale here in East Rutherford for the future. I hope they don't cut him or, mutual ways, because there's no way if Wink Martindale's not here, we're not winning these games.
Absolutely agree with you. I mean, like you said, that point about pressuring Jordan Love, the sacks didn't materialize. I think they had 2 or 3 sacks, but they had 9 QB hits. So they were making the young quarterback in Jordan Love, who has looked phenomenal in recent weeks, leading the Packers to wins over the Chiefs and the Detroit Lions. Here recently, they made him look very uncomfortable, and that's credit to the Giants personnel on defense, and also credit to Wink Martindale sending those blitz packages in. And we'll talk about the defensive effort here in a second. But another name that we were sort of, I guess, criticizing or talking about in sort of a shaky light, weeks ago is guy who's owed a contract this coming off season is Xavier McKinney. He had a great game. So, Rodney, what you got on this game, man? I'm curious to hear your thoughts as well. This is it was quite the defense performance, but the offense really did keep the Giants in this game as well, and when it mattered the most down the.
Yeah, it did. I'm very impressed of two things. One, the offensive line and how they performed. Now, it wasn't the best, even though they didn't give up any sacks. They did give up some pressures. But I was very impressed on how the offensive line held up, especially with is it Justin Pugh? He's on the left side along with Andrew Thomas. I was very impressed on how that left side held up. Right side, better than what it has been, but I was very impressed. But the thing that got me the most was how Tommy DeVito was able to manipulate the pocket throughout this game, avoiding sacks, not forcing anything, and taking exactly what the defense was giving him, which means he's got a wide open space, take off, grab some yards, live to fight another one. So I was very, very, very impressed with just how the offense ran. It didn't look like a JV offense, high school JV. It didn't look anything like that. It looked like a NFL offense from start to finish. Defense-wise, I mean, you have to be very impressed over the last, especially the last 3-4 games, starting from Washington on. Just the simple fact that this defense keeps getting turnovers. They are creating turnovers. And whether they're making, getting points off the turnovers is one thing. But the fact is that the defense is keeping the offense in the game. They're keeping the Giants in the game, not letting it get away from them. I mean, what else can you say? Like I said, I was very impressed with just both sides of the ball. And yes, I think it was. See, Chris, you said it. Definitely no. You can't get rid of Wink. I'm sorry, you can't get rid of him. I don't care what Dable and him have going on. They need to fix it. Dap each other up, whatever. Give each other some pound, whatever. Take each other out to dinner, steak dinners, whatever. Just patch it up. Can't let Wink go. Not with how this defense is playing. Not with how it's playing.
Facts.
Bobby Okereke is really the nucleus.
Yes, he is.
One of the best free agent signings.
That was one of the best free agent signings of not recent memory. I won't say that, but that was really important for the season. We got Tommy G checking in. My brothers, he says, "What up, Tommy G? Everyone, check out his podcast as well. A great podcast for the Giants. Make sure you're checking in with him on YouTube and X as well. Great content all around." Chris is asking us, do you keep Tyree Phillips at right tackle or move him to guard once Neal comes back? I think with what we've heard the Giants and how Joe Schoen kind of decided to answer that sort of question about Evan Neal's future, I think that you have to move him to guard, and I think they will do that because Evan Neal doesn't sound like Joe Shane is ready to move Evan Neal to guard anytime soon. Said he watched all that tape at Alabama, rewatched it again, and is very confident Evan Neal's ability to turn it around. But like I said, I mean, us, the general public, us Giants fans, us on here, we don't know what to expect and we don't know what we're going to get out of Evan Neal. Not only coming back from this injury when he does, but moving forward in future seasons. So, Chris, I don't know if you want to handle that one and what you would do, but this is going to be a topic of discussion once Evan Neal comes back. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I would still keep Tyree Phillips, and I'm not going to give up on Evan Neal. You know, me personally, I would like to see him under a different offensive line coach first, at a worst case scenario. But um, even going into next season, right? And I know that the question kind of really just focuses on this season, but just looking forward, I'm not going to give Evan Neal that starting job just off rip. I would like to see there be some open competition at that position, which it sucks to say because you draft him top 10 at 7 overall. You know, we shouldn't be having this conversation, but unfortunately we are. I've liked what I've seen from Tyree Phillips so far at right tackle, and you know when he comes back, when that happens, I would still like to see Evan Neal at right tackle. Just let him if he's healthy enough to play, you know, these next couple games, especially against Philly and the Rams. See what you have. You know, let's see what he can put on tape. I don't want to completely just give up on Evan Neal. And like you said, Chris, I mean, Joe Shane just recently said that they went back and watched that Alabama film. There's a reason why they selected him 7th overall. And I want to say, you know, you could move, you know, him to guard, which is always a possibility, but I don't know. I wouldn't move him. I wouldn't move him just yet. Just yet. If by, you know, maybe the middle of the year next year, hopefully not, but if by then, if it's not working out, yeah, kick him into right guard because at that point you're on year 3. You should be progressing at that point. And again, just as long as it's not just given to him off rip, let there be some competition there, put a little fire under his ass, and see what you got.
And what do you think about this in terms of the Giants' draft position now winning these games, presumably moving down in the draft, right? Those premier quarterbacks are not going to be there, right? We talked about the potential to have maybe an offensive lineman on the board if you were to go that route if you're the New York Giants in round 1, and if you keep winning a couple more games and you slot out of that top 10. Is that something you would, as a fan, because we know probably what Joe Shane's going to do, and he's not going to opt to move Evan Neal like myself and Chris just said, but does that become a possibility in your mind to sort of expedite that process of moving Evan Neal over in order to sort of maximize your gain and your potential outcome for this coming draft, given who is available at the tackle positions? Like I said, I don't know how the draft's going to shake out. We still got a long ways to go. Nothing solidified in terms of where the New York Giants are going to be picking at, depending what happens over these next 4 weeks. But is that something you have to sort of take into account when you're just trying to address this merry-go-round of Evan Neal and whether he moves or not?
Well, I was going to say to put him at guard because we still want an Eric Flower situation, but there was something I saw. I think it was on Facebook. I think they're called like Giants Corner or something like that. But they were saying how like John Michael Schmitz is having like a bad year, and that I was like, I don't think so. So because they're really bashing Evan Neal too. So I think if we get, like we were just talking about, if you'll fire Bobby Johnson, actually get an offensive line coach, maybe that's going to be the difference. Because if Joe Shane is saying, hey, listen, this guy at Alabama, he played right tackle, left tackle, he played both tackle positions there. Let's not forget. But I think it was primarily left tackle the last year or two there at Alabama. But I think this year, I would see what he does at guard for like a game or two. If he's really not like comfortable in it, you know, switch him over to right tackle, get him back in his familiar position, and then just draft I don't know if he's going to still be there, but draft a Joe Alt from Notre Dame. He just declared he's coming out. maybe find another guard in the second or third rounds to put it in the starter position. We've seen it with John Michael Schmitz, was our second rounder, so maybe there's a diamond in the rough that we don't know about. But I mean, I would still kind of, I'm gonna probably regret this, but probably not. I still think we should keep Evan Neal at right tackle. Hopefully his confidence is coming up since he's been hurt. He's seeing how Tyree Phillips has been, so I'm just hoping that he's not going to turn to Ereck Flowers.
Yeah, no, that's a valid point. I think Darius agrees with you here. He says Neal is far too talented to be playing like this. He has everything to be an elite tackle, and yet, yeah, we're just all wondering why it's that and yet that we have to talk about instead of just saying he's an elite tackle. Period. Right. And that's really the question. Is that I don't know if Joe Schoen can see anything on film that we're not seeing. I'm not going to sit there and watch 1,000 hours of Evan Neal tape at tackle for Alabama like Joe Schoen's going to do. I'm a fan of the Giants. I'm not the GM of the Giants, right? But there has to be something that works out there. And I think the first order of business is obviously addressing that offensive line coaching staff. That's first and foremost. But you also have to hold the player accountable at the end of the day, too. If necessary, Darius says you can opt to get a free agent offensive tackle as well, which I completely agree with. I think that regardless if you plan on having Evan Neal there or not, you need to either draft or sign a safety net in case he really doesn't figure it out. So that and like I said, if you go the draft route, might not be round one with who's available. You mentioned Joe Alt. I don't think he's going to be there past the 10th pick anyways. He's projected to go top 5 or top 6. So it really is going to depend. But yeah, it's an interesting topic. But I wanted to close out our takeaways for the Packers game here with the man you see on the screen, number 17. And I want to provide this question to Rodney, because every time I talk about Wan'Dale, like I'm a huge Wan'Dale guy. I'm not sure if you all as much are Wan'Dale fans as I am, but this man is so versatile, man. No matter where he lines up, I'm confident that he's going to make a play no matter what. We saw that Wildcat formation with him lining up right alongside Saquon Barkley and Saquon handing him the ball off for what, a 25-yard gain. And we also saw him line up on the outside and just make ridiculous contested catches, even made a great snag going out, keeping 2 feet in bounds when he was, I forgot exactly what quarter that was, but it was an impressive catch nonetheless. And like I said, everyone was down on this pick when we drafted Wan'Dale Robinson with his stature coming out of Kentucky, but he has really not only improved, but he's just shown us that he's a capable wide receiver, even given that question mark in terms of stature at the NFL level. And his speed speaks for itself. Even with that ACL injury that he's coming off of, he came back strong and he looks explosive. Rodney, what do you like out of Wan'Dale Robinson that you're seeing? Obviously had the most yardage out of any Giants receiver in this game.
I like his versatility. I mean, I absolutely love his versatility. The fact that you can use him in the backfield as well. I mean, put it to you like this: I know it's too early to say, so I might get a lot of flack for this, but I see a little bit of Tyreek Hill there. I might be wrong.
Whoa, that's a hot take.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's hotter than hot.
I see a little. I said a little. That much.
I see.
Just for the he's got a lot of shiftiness. He's got the speed, and he's one of those guys that you can pretty much rely on. And you see, Tommy DeVito is relying on him to make plays down the field. So I'm glad that that chemistry is being made between the both of them. I wish it was more or less DJ with that chemistry, but you know what? It's a hand we've been dealt with. DeVito's in, and he's doing exactly what needs to be to get the job done. I'm very impressed with this play coming off of that ACL. Very impressed. I mean, it's almost like he didn't really lose a step from the performance that he was doing, in year one. I wasn't one of those guys that didn't like the Wan'Dale pick. I didn't really know much about him, but based off of the fact that, like I said, he's very versatile. You could put him in the slot, put him on the outside, in the backfield. I mean, these jet sweeps, it's perfect for that. He has the speed to get around. I mean, what more can I say? I'm very, very impressed with how especially like I said with DeVito and just their chemistry, and it's just probably going to get better throughout the time, throughout the games and going forward. As long as they both stay healthy, especially Wandale, sky's the limit for this kid, especially with this team.
Absolutely.
And to kind of add to that point real quick, not to cut you off, Chris, but like,
no, not at all.
One of my favorite plays from that game against the Packers was, that wildcat formation that we saw with Wandale and Saquon. I mean, I really love how they're getting Wandale involved often and early. Again, that was his breakout game, but you saw in a variety of different ways, that they're implementing him into this offense. And Rodney, I mean, I know you said you didn't know much about him. I mean, I was one of those people, and I tweeted. I wasn't the biggest fan of the Wandale selection. I really liked George Pickens. I thought there was other receivers that could have possibly fit this offense a little bit better, but I was open-minded to the pick as time went on, and then you started seeing, especially last year in that Detroit game, how it was looking like he's going to be implemented in this offense, and you get excited seeing that, and obviously the injury, and then you see this game against Green Bay, and like I said earlier, to the people coming in now, I'm really excited to see Wandale going forward and how he progresses as a wide receiver because yeah, dude is shifty. He's electric. He's showing off his route running ability, but dude just gets open. he
Yes, he
gets
does.
open, and do they use him more in the run game? I mean, I believe actually. I believe was it Chris? I could be wrong. Not you, Chris. Other Chris. So many Chris's in this space right now.
Yeah, that's right.
Where he wanted him to be used more like Debo. And as much as I would love, to see Wandale in that role, I don't know if his frame can take that many beatings, man. I just got because Debo is a big dude. He's a big dude. Wandale is what 5'9". I mean, I don't know, but I agree with you 100%. Just wanted to kind of
5'8".
throw that in there. Yeah, 5'8". I don't think he can really take that beating, but yeah, I just want to throw that in there. I'm really excited to see Wandale get this man a quarterback.
Absolutely. Darius says he expected Robinson to be picked, but he was picked earlier than he thought. He's becoming everything that we all wanted Kadarius Toney to be. Yeah, that's honestly that's a valid analysis right there. Like Kadarius Toney didn't work out. Joe Shane pulled the plug. And that was the end of that, right? And he gave him a chance. I mean, he gave him a couple games and it just didn't work out. So regardless of what we think about Kadarius Toney and his time here in the Giants, we are on to bigger and better things. And we'll talk about this fact. And what I've been singing this whole entire season, the tune that I've been singing about this young core starting to finally materialize not only in our wide receiver groups with Hyatt and Wandale, but also when I talk about the Giants' defensive effort and that secondary and how young that secondary is, we'll talk about how the Giants are sort of slowly but surely cooking up a roster that is going to be sustainable for the future. So let's get into the man, the myth, the legend, the man of the hour, Tommy Cutlets, and what he was able to do on Monday night. 158 yards, not going to wow you. He was 17 of 21 in terms of passing attempts. He had 71 rush yards and 1 TD. This is what I loved about his performance and why I think that he is adjusting very well. He is minimizing the silly mistakes, minimizing them. That's one. Two, like Rodney said before, he is not taking unnecessary sacks. I think he took a couple of unnecessary sacks in his first couple of games, maybe his first game or two. There was a couple of times where he held on the ball for too long, but he's really starting to materialize into that pocket QB with awareness and the awareness to understand when you stay in that pocket to hit that receiver in stride, even in the face of pressure, or when you escape it to get those 71 rush yards. We saw it immediately when Tyrod Taylor took over for Daniel Jones, when Daniel Jones went down, and I was raving about Tyrod Taylor's ability to maintain that pocket and evade it when needed, but also stand in there and not be scared. Daniel Jones can't do that. And I think Daniel Jones, I hate to say it, might be a little bit of PTSD for him getting knocked around so much. But these guys that are coming in behind that offensive line and Tyrod Taylor and Tommy DeVito, fresh legs, maybe not so scared, they stay in there. And yeah, they're going to get sacked 100%. But what I'm saying is that they just understand the game a little bit more. When we talk about a game where your receivers need time to separate, these quarterbacks, whether it's Terod or Tommy DeVito, and Tommy DeVito's doing a great job being an undrafted rookie at doing this, he's buying his receivers more time to get open, and he's reaping the benefits of that reward. So, Chris, let me know what you have on Tommy DeVito. Like I said, this has been a Linsanity-esque run for Tommy DeVito, Tommy Cutlets. His father just went on the fan not a couple of days ago and was plugging in his plumbing business. And this family, when the camera cuts to them, they're taking it all in, and deservingly so. Their son is killing it out there. So what you got on Tommy DeVito?
Yeah, it's the whole dad situation is funny. I saw that. Shout out Coach Ed, man. First of all, and shout out everybody in the chat. Appreciate you guys watching. Yeah, Tommy DeVito. Listen, I mean, that was a great game by him. I mean, you hit the nail on the head there, Chris. I mean, he was just escaping the pocket, creating plays with his legs, keeping drives going, finding his receivers open. I really liked, the off-script play that we saw in the red zone to Isaiah Hodgins. I thought he had quietly a pretty decent game. I really want to see him try to get implemented a little bit more. But Tommy DeVito, look, my expectations were very minimal for this kid, and I'm still keeping them pretty level. I see some people questioning whether he could be that franchise guy next year. I would say pump the brakes a little bit, but I mean, if he goes on a little stretch here, and at least, I mean, if he ties it up with Philly, make him 1-1 when we face him, then I don't see why not he can at least compete for quarterback 2 next year. If I'm being honest. But yeah, going back to the game, I got to be honest. Did y'all think that 26-yard run that he had where he bumped into Waddell, did y'all think that was a touchdown? Because every angle that you look at it, it looks like that was a clear-cut touchdown. I could be wrong.
So
I could just be blind.
It was so close.
More or less.
Yeah.
No, go ahead, Chris. Go ahead. Finish.
No, man. I thought it was so close, but I will say, like on the last angle that they showed, I think that his knee hit by just a smidge before that ball crossed the goal line. That's what I saw on the replay. But like I said, I wear glasses usually. I wasn't wearing my glasses at the time, so I could be very, very far off in that judgment.
His left hand was down while he was being touched, so they're gonna call that no matter what.
Yeah, no, definitely. But yeah, it was a great game by him, a great game by this coaching staff as well. I got to give a lot of credit to Brian Dable and Mike Kafka, drawing up a really nice game plan. I think they're starting to give more trust to Tommy DeVito, because if y'all remember in that Jets game, it seemed like they didn't trust this man to throw the ball at all. And they're letting him sling it. They're letting him, take chances. And I think especially, and I'm sure we'll talk about this at some point, but especially with Darren Waller coming back, I don't know.
Yikes.
I don't know. What are we going to see? I mean, Darren Waller's coming back to a confident Giants team. Tommy DeVito, who seems to be a little bit, I'm not going to say annoyed, but tired of the whole chicken parmesan, Italian cutlets thing being asked to him 24/7. It's really exciting, man. I got to give a lot of credit to this kid. He's performing well. He's kind of old. Do y'all know how old he is?
He's like 25, I think.
Yeah, he's 25 years old. He's 1 year less than Daniel Jones.
Well, I actually didn't.
He's an old.
I had no idea that was a fact. But
he's an old rookie. But I mean,
the oldest rookie I remember was Brand Whedon. He was 30, first rounder.
Oh,
exactly.
Oklahoma State.
Exactly.
My mind though goes to Darius Williams, because he was. I think what was he drafted? He was like 25 years old when he was drafted at the cornerback position.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's not obviously Wheaton old, but I know we're going on a little spiel there, but yeah.
It's always a fun time on the podcast when Brandon Whedon's name gets thrown out there, and that's what I can definitely rely on Aaron each and every time to throw out a random guy to just bring up. But Darius says DeVito has confidence in swag, and even though he's not putting up eye-opening numbers, he's
Chris, I think you might have cut out, or maybe it's just me.
No, I think it's his mic. It happened
Oh.
before, but I will say though, Tommy DeVito in the Jets game, 2 for 7, -1 yard. All right, that when he came in for Tyrod, and now look at him,
You know
158
something?
yards.
Let me tell you something. I had tickets to that game. I was
Ah.
supposed to go to that game. I couldn't go last second due to an emergency, but I still got to watch that game. It was raining. It was cold. I give a lot of respect to the fans that went to that Giants and Jets game and had to witness Tommy DeVito throw for negative yardage on 7 passes.
That was
All right,
brutal.
I'm going to ask you guys this question. Why do you think that was?
In regards to the negative yardage or them
I
trusting?
feel like playbook.
What was
I
his
feel like,
stats
you know,
again?
It was 2 for 7, -1 passing yard.
Oh, negative
Okay.
1.
So he only threw 7 passes. 7.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Against a Jets team who's really they're more tailored to stop the run than anything else. I mean, of course you got Sauce Gardner in the secondary, but they're more tailored to stop the run. So why is it that he only threw 7 passes through that whole entire game?
I think the reason for that was forgive me if I'm mistaken. I'm not sure if it was raining that game, but if you remember correctly, even though the Giant, can you hear me now? By the way, I hope I'm not just talking thin air. Okay, I really do agree with you that the Jets are more of a defense to stop the run, and they're more well positioned for that. But Saquon was kind of eating against them, especially down in crunch time. He was finding those holes, and I'm not sure why the Jets weren't able to stop him, but I think that's partially the reason. But also, I think that the Giants coaching staff really does just get in their way sometimes in terms of not trusting that sort of new personnel when they get thrown into that spotlight right off the bat, that they thought that they could, I guess, duke it out with the Jets with the run game. Now, it ended up working in the Giants' favor for most of the game until they fumbled the bag on the win. We could be singing it. Listen, if the Giants, I know we're not in the playoff discussion yet, but if the Giants won that game like they should have, they basically gave that game away against the Jets. We're singing a different tune right now, to be honest with you, with the way this record's played out. But that was really peculiar with me, and that got me angry, to be honest with you, because DeVito at that point was already practicing with the Giants for a little bit at that point. So he should have had the playbook down pat, and he should have been throwing the ball more than 7 times in the game. But like I said, it beats me. I don't know if anyone wants to take a stab at that.
Maybe it's a Tyrod Taylor effect, because I believe him and his dad have like praised Tyrod Taylor and like kind of teaching DeVito. And I know that there's a little like stir controversy going on right now. That, like, if Tyrod plays the next like 4 games, he gets like $1 million in his contract. So he's getting a little like, antsy on the bench. But I think maybe Tyrod probably took him under the wing. Like, hey, listen, we're the only 2 quarterbacks. Daniel's out for the year. Maybe it's something like that.
I don't know. It could have been a lot of things. If we're talking about particularly that one Jets game, could have just been the game plan. I mean, I definitely understand. I definitely understand where you're coming from, Chris. But at the same time, it's like, I mean, that's still, in my eyes, at that point in time, that was still, and it's still, a pretty good Jets defense. At that time, they were a very good defense. I still think they're a good defense right now. And I don't think you want to throw your rookie undrafted quarterback, into the fire like that, having him air it out all the time, especially, I mean, it was a pretty windy game. I was in the city. It was cold. It was rainy. Not the best conditions, especially, what was that going to be, his second, maybe first start? No, I think like second, right? I believe Dallas was Dallas the first?
No, because he didn't start that game. Dallas is his first start.
Dallas was his first start. So, I mean, yeah, again, that could have just been the game plan. But going back, bringing it back to the Packers game, yeah, DeVito, solid game. I actually, if we could highlight Darius's comment here about the Eagles, up 1, boom.
Oh, he beats the Eagles. Oof.
I can absolutely see something like that happening. Where if he does beat the Eagles, I think it would be expected. A lot of people in this fan base would want him at that starting position. Would I per se? Nope. But if he does, hey, more credit to him, because how many times does that happen for the New York Giants? So I mean, I hate the Eagles. So at the end of the day, I'm excited to see how he's progressing. I give him a lot of credit. A lot of credit. He's a smart kid. He's a talented kid. I give a lot of credit to this coaching staff as well because they're putting this kid in some pretty good situations. I mean, you saw it again in the Jets game, and I'm not expecting every game to be 0 sacks whatsoever, but he's definitely improving in that aspect by avoiding sacks, evading the pocket, creating plays, extending drives. So I really want to see more from him in that regard.
Yeah, I agree with you. And just to round out the DeVito discussion before we get into the defense, I agree with both you, Chris, because you said this earlier on when we were talking about DeVito, and Darius right now. I still want to pump the brakes in terms of him becoming, the starting quarterback of the New York Giants in, next season. I don't think that that's realistic. And I don't know if the Giants are playing themselves out of a first-round quarterback. I don't know what that's going to look like. All I know is that you have a $40 million quarterback coming back to your team next year, presumably going to be healthy and recovered off of a knee. And if you don't find a trade candidate, which you won't unless you eat some of that $40 million and send them off to, I don't know, a Falcons team maybe, or whoever else would take a flyer on him, then Daniel Jones, for that amount of money, I mean, you could just say, hey, you're a $40 million backup, and we're going to just basically decline that option on you after year 2, which his contract allows for. But I don't see Tommy DeVito being the starter for the New York Giants next season, unfortunately. Now, like I said, if he goes out there and beats, I think we'll talk about this in playoffs, but I really do think that the playoffs are not out of question if you take one of those two from the Eagles and you take care of business against the other two teams. I know that's a lot to ask for, but if Tommy DeVito does that, and he limits those turnovers, limits those sacks, maybe you're singing a different tune. But for right now, objectively speaking, I just don't see that out of him right now. I think this is more or less a little bit of a Linsanity run. And, I wouldn't be opposed to bringing him back and just plugging him into that QB2 role with Tyrod Taylor gone. But I think we need to pump the brakes on Tommy DeVito as the future sort of narrative that I haven't seen yet, but I know that some of the fan base definitely is rolling with right now. So, that's what I got.
And one thing, because you actually just mentioned it, you got to give him a lot of credit too. This kid isn't turning the ball over. He's not turning the ball over whatsoever, and I feel like in almost every other game, right? When the Green Bay Packers go down, they're marching down the field off of a turnover, they score. Usually, us as fans, I'm not going to say everyone. I don't want to speak for everyone. I'm not going to speak for myself and how I think because I'm a little crazy. But, a lot of people in that situation, the Giants just beat themselves. That's the game. Even though there's a whole last minute left, that's it. That's the game. But this kid was cool, calm, and collected. Eyes on him on Monday Night Football. Leads the Giants downfield. Finds Wan'Dale Robinson, who we were speaking about earlier. I mean, just you got to give him a lot of credit for how he's handling, just this offense, how he's handling the media, how he's handling himself as a person. I'm very impressed. Pump the brakes on the starter position. I've been seeing people try to compare him to the Brock Purdy situation. Relax. But again, like if he can improve, absolutely. I think even regardless, you should take the flyer and bring him back next year. Just because you have a quarterback coming off of an injury, Tyrod's most likely going to be gone, and if you're in a position to draft a quarterback, I have no qualm with keeping him on the roster next year. I don't think it'd be a problem at all.
Absolutely, 100%. And Darius is saying, we'll talk about this. He thinks the Eagles Christmas game is going to decide our fate in the playoffs, and it very well could. Chris is saying Hodgins, Wan'Dale, and Hyatt have performed better under DeVito. Mm-hmm. I do agree with that. I'm not gonna lie to you. We see a trend here.
Dable tells him to fucking sling it.
Yeah, he said, and I quote, "Sling that motherfucker."
Yeah. So
what does he have to lose, though? What do we say when we were on this podcast weeks ago when Tommy DeVito was making his first start and we knew that this kid was in for a rough day against that Dallas defense in Dallas? What do we say? We said, dude, you got nothing to lose. Just throw the ball. You got nothing to lose. Hit your guys. If they pick it, they pick it. Whatever. There's not really any expectations on you. So just do your thing, If it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, it doesn't. It didn't end up working out. And you can see it's a full circle moment. He's back in the spotlight, and it's now working out for him. So, like I said, he's got nothing to lose. Even now, he's got nothing to lose. There's a little bit of higher expectations naturally as he progresses and starts to do well, consistently. But there, in the grand scheme of things, he's got nothing to lose, even still. So, like I said, I completely agree with that. I'm glad Daboll is sort of mimicking that to him. I think that does a lot for a player's confidence. So, let's move on. The defensive effort, man. I was gonna put Deontay in this graphic or X-Man, but you gotta put Mr. Wink Martindale in this graphic and what he's been able to do with this Giants defensive core, even while this season hasn't really been what we expected. Like I said, the Giants are truly building a core of young players that will play for many seasons to come. You talk about Kayvon Thibodeau. You talk about newly signed Bobby Okereke. You talk about Micah McFadden. You talk about Deontay Banks, Jason Pinnock. We'll see what happens with X-Man. Sexy Dexy is going to be there on the D-line. This is a defense that has all the pieces to be elite with a couple of additions here in free agency, with a couple of draft pieces there via the draft and Joe Shane maybe hitting on a couple of late picks. Forgive me if I'm wrong, though. Before I praise this team too much, a little bit of a – I'm not saying I'm not mad at it, but did we see Trey Hawkins on the field at any point in this game on the defensive side of the ball?
We haven't seen
No,
him.
he was not.
Not one snap, right? So, like I said, there's a lot to sort of go off on, but that kind of did alarm me in terms of the Giants' confidence moving forward with Trey Hawkins. Like I said, 6th pick, had a lot of expectations based off of a great training camp, but that is just training camp at the end of the day. So, Rodney, I'll start with you. Like I said, given what we saw with this Giants defense in the last couple of go-arounds, especially in the Green Bay Packers game, what do you make of it? And who's really impressing you? Like, if you had to pick one guy, who's that guy that you're like, damn, I'm glad that he's on our squad for the foreseeable future?
I'd say two guys, really, not just one for me. Bobby Okereke and Micah McFadden. I mean, when was the last time that we actually had two really good linebackers on the field at the same time?
Great question.
Just think about that just for a second there. It's been a minute. I mean, we had the Jalen Smiths and
I was going to say Pierce and Quika Mitchell from 07.
Possibly. I think you actually know. No, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Throw a little Jarris Wilkinson on the other side.
Exactly. But I mean, you got to be very impressed on it. All around, the defense is good. Okay, very well. They're playing very well. I'm impressed on how, you know. I mean, it's Dexter Lawrence. The guy's he's what, top 3 interior defensive lineman, hands down. All right. I'm very impressed with the play from Deontay Banks. Now, Cordell Flott, that wasn't his best game, but I think the more and more this kid gets in, the more snaps he sees, he's going to get better. You know, for some reason, I don't know why he hasn't been playing as much as last season from to this season. I don't know why, but I think the more snaps that kid sees, he has the potential to be good. But I got a question for you guys.
Shoot.
Does it concern you at how many blitzes Wink sends? Because I could have counted, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 times where I'm scratching my head trying to figure out, why did you send a blitz on this play? One of the plays, I think it was more or less, actually it was on a jet sweep. And he sent the blitz on a jet sweep. Now, I don't know why he did that. I sat there and I was just literally questioning, like, why did he send a blitz? And don't get me wrong, I like the fact that Wink is not afraid to blitz these guys constantly, constantly, constantly. But I would love to. I would love to sit there. Like if I was had the opportunity to sit, I'm like, there's some times when you're sending blitzes that you should not be sending a blitz at all, based off of the fact of what I saw, how the offense was lined up. Why are you sending a blitz? And I mean, you saw it.
Yeah.
The touchdown pass, I think it was to oh man. I can't remember his name. It was Deontay Banks, I think, was covering him. The one that he caught in the he sent the blitz on that one.
Yeah, that was on no, I'm thinking of I believe that was cover one.
No, I'm sorry. I'm thinking the wrong game. That was Washington. I'm sorry.
Okay, no, I was thinking of the Green Bay game on the last drive. But
there was a time that he sent the blitz, and it's like, what the hell are you doing? Why did you do that? So that's the question from me to you guys. Do you think at times Wink blitzes too much?
I think that's what brought him out in Baltimore, because he was doing that way too much with what he had for the D line. Because he hasn't really had much linebackers, especially with the Ravens. I think he had like Patrick Queen. Yeah, definitely in the pass rush. That is very accurate. It's very accurate.
It is.
But I think that's just his scheme. I think he just likes blitzing no matter what. Because I think it was like 3 or 4 plays where he didn't blitz, and they were like, "Oh, that's surprising." I think at one point he had a 3-man rush or a 4-man rush and didn't blitz. It was like or was it 5-1-3, something like that. But I think it's just because he's always done that ever since Baltimore.
Yeah, I feel like that's just Darius said it best. I mean, he's gonna live and die by the blitz, and honestly, I expect him to blitz a lot against Derek Carr and the Saints, because Derek Carr does not perform good whatsoever under the blitz. The tape and the numbers show that. So for me, I mean, yeah, there's definitely times where it's going to bite you in the ass, right? And, you're going to live and die with those plays. Now, I do believe, if you're asking me personally, I don't mind it. I don't mind it because I believe that right now, currently, and like you said, Chris, earlier, with the additions that we'll get in free agency in the draft, it's going to make this defense better. But currently, I think they have the guys to get home when they draw up blitzes, whether that's, with Micah McFadden and Bobby Okereke. Then you have Dex plugging up the middle. Ashawn's been playing fairly solid too. Kayvon, double-digit sack a year. I mean, you got the guys to get home consistently. And those are a lot of people to keep accounted for as well, especially Dexter Lawrence in the middle. So, yeah, there's definitely times where, it's going to bite this team in the ass, but I don't think we're going to see that, or at least haven't seen it more often than not than it has been succeeding, because it's been succeeding more than it's been biting us in the ass, thankfully. But it's going to happen. And Aaron, I agree with you. I do feel like that was, if not the main reason, one of the main reasons why he was drawn out of Baltimore, whether that's because of his relationship with Harbaugh, kind of not physically, because they go way, way, way back. Him and the Harbaughs, and they still speak very high of each other. But things happen, and it also doesn't help him either that he had so many players on that defense get injured that year too. So yeah, he just didn't have the personnel to do what he needed to do in his defensive scheme. He has that right now. You see that with McFadden and Bobby O, Dex. I don't mind it. I don't mind it. And when we could get more pieces, bring me Danielle Hunter. But we could get more pieces. Oof. Man.
Hey, and I'll take this over the NASCAR Perry Fuel defense any day. So
any day. That was
rough. My answer to that is that just look at the quarterbacks that the Giants have recently been playing in terms of age and experience. To talk about like a Mac Jones / Bailey Zappi, like you got to pressure those kind of guys into making mistakes. Jordan Love, same thing, being a young quarterback. Sam Howell, same thing, being a young quarterback. It is situational for me. Like I said, you do have to pick and choose a time to do it. I'm not sure heavy blitz packages against a Jalen Hurts-led Eagles team is going to work more often than not. But it is situational. So the games that we've been winning against the Patriots, against the Packers, etc., against the Commanders, It makes perfect sense to me. And the Giants defense has been reaping the rewards of that in terms of getting those takeaways and getting that pressure, whether it's via maybe a fumble or whether it's just a flat out interception of those quarterbacks making those rash decisions. So absolutely. Chris is saying he thinks that the Giants could potentially or should potentially explore a 3 linebacker package in the game against Philly. That makes all the sense in the world to me, to be honest with you. I do agree with that on all fronts, especially as a contain for Jalen Hurts and maybe some of the I guess his capabilities in terms of escaping the pocket more or less. So could potentially do a QB spy on that, being one of the linebackers of those
Isaiah
3 that you're
Simmons?
mentioning. What was that?
Isaiah Simmons.
You a little QB spy from Isaiah Simmons.
That's
I
Chris's
like
guy.
it.
I just had to sprinkle that in there. I could
Facts.
see that. I could see that. Put him on the QB spy. Let Micah McFadden and Bobby O do their thing. 'Cause
Absolutely.
they're gonna do their
Absolutely.
thing. But
Yep. Shout out Chris. That's a great idea. Before we round out and kind of talk about this playoff picture here, like just to go back on the whole Trey Hawkins situation, obviously didn't see any snaps, has had a really rough go at it this regular season. I'll never forget the press coverage he played on Tyreek Hill and just got absolutely burned for what was it, like a 60-yard touchdown in that Dolphins game earlier on in the season. This tandem of Deontay Banks and Adoree Jackson taking care of the outside with Cordell Flott in the slot is something that I absolutely love the tandem of. And when I mentioned that young secondary core, can't believe I forgot to mention him, but Cordell Flott is coming into his own as well, former LSU Tiger. So like I said, Wink Martindale has the options in the secondary to kind of play around with. And they're succeeding at a high rate. So that's something that we can't forget about as well. We'll see about Trey Hawkins. We're not going to write him off for the next season, etc. There's plenty of time to develop. The talent is there. We know that, or else he would have never impressed in training camp, but it just hasn't materialized into full game speed action. So, gents, I'm not sure if you all have anything else on the defense before we move into the playoffs, but make sure you go ahead and get your takes off.
yeah,
I just want to say I called it in our Giants NFL roster talk. Cordell Flott was my guy.
Facts. It was. Facts.
Listen, to kind of go back to the Javarius Owens thing. I mean, you look at the guys ahead of him. I mean, you got obviously Flott, you got Darnay, you got Nick McLeod, who I know that they use them both at corner and at safety. So these are guys that have shown, even Darnay, who I'm not the biggest fan of. These are guys that have shown that they can play. And again, I think this kind of goes back, not in the same context, but kind of to the whole Tommy DeVito thing that we were talking about earlier. This staff, with trusting guys early. What was he, like a 6th or a 7th round pick? I feel like with those kind of players, these are players that need to be developed, and they need time. And especially with the Adoree Jackson, the money that he's making, I know you want to see what you have in the young guys, but Adoree Jackson's making a pretty dime right now. And, he's playing really good too. And I think that Deontay Banks also needed that as well, because you saw different times throughout the year where Deontay Banks was lined up against the wide receiver ones, and the wide receiver ones were doing their thing on Deontay Banks. Look at Terry McLaurin. I mean, Terry McLaurin was doing his thing. You can look at Tyreek as well. I mean, it's going to happen, especially with these young rookies. But, I think that at this moment in time, and I do believe that they will address the cornerback position, because I'm just seeing Jaden's comment. I do believe that they will address the cornerback position in free agency, because I think Adoree will walk after this year. But I just feel with how Adoree's been playing, how Cordell's been playing, Deontay's been playing, there's only so many snaps to go around. You feel me? And it's like when Javarius was in the game, wasn't looking too hot. He was really a liability on this defense, unfortunately. Now, can he be a starter going forward? Maybe, but Travarius Owens shouldn't stop you from still addressing the position. You know what I mean? And even with Darnay, we don't know what's going to happen with Darnay after this season. He may not even be on the roster. So for me, I mean, the guys ahead of him, they're playing fairly solid right now. They're not really giving any reason to start Travarius Owens right now. Maybe if Adoree wasn't playing, God forbid he had an injury or he just wasn't playing good. Same with Flott. Maybe see what you have in the young guy, but I think you got to keep rolling with these two in Banks and Adoree until this season ends.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And it becomes a different discussion, like you said, after the season when Adoree Jackson becomes an unrestricted free agent, 30 years old, injury history. He had a good tenure during, with his time with the Giants, but I don't think the Giants are going to bring him back, to be honest with you. And I think that's where Jaden is kind of saying we need another cornerback and address that in the offseason. Absolutely. Whether it's free agency or going in one of the first couple of rounds with the cornerback position. So we'll see how the draft shakes out. More content from us when draft season rolls around, the offseason free agency sort of rolls around. It's going to be a blast doing some content with you all and hopping on these podcasts and talking about that. I'm thoroughly looking forward to it. So like I said, in addition to that, we're not going anywhere in the offseason. Make sure you're subscribing to everyone's channels down in the description down below. I know we got 9 heads in the chat right now. Whether you're listening on YouTube or Twitter, drop your comments in the comment section and we'll address those. And subscribe to everyone's channel on here. We all have YouTube channels. We all have Twitter accounts. Make sure you're tapping in with these guys right here to my side. So let's talk about the playoffs, man. And I said I was methodical with what my graphics are going to be. And we said it at the top of the stream. You know who's back, baby. Mr. Darren Waller himself, number 12, has missed a couple of weeks of action. Finally, Tommy DeVito gets another weapon at his disposal with Darren Waller coming back. Gents, I know this is an uncomfortable topic given what we sort of were talking about the last couple of weeks and sort of looking forward to the draft and the draft positioning, etc. Darius was saying in the chat about the Eagles Christmas game potentially being something where we really do have playoff implications on the line. I know the negative side of Giants Twitter doesn't want to hear this conversation whatsoever because they have been rooting for the Giants to lose this whole time, which is perfectly fine. Like, I'm not going to tell anyone how to fan. I would much rather be excited about looking forward to Giants games than not in terms of wanting them to lose. But that's just my side of the fence that I'm picking. If you're on the other side of the fence, fair too. I'm not going to sort of discredit you as a fan. But what I will say is that with this Green Bay or this win over the Green Bay Packers, we're looking at a 5-8 team, and the Green Bay Packers still hold that last slot in the NFC wild card, that 7th seed. We're only a game back of those guys. We have the Saints right there in the thick of things. We beat them this week. We hold the tiebreaker over them. We already hold the tiebreaker over the Packers. Guys, the Falcons are right in the mix of things, and the Vikings are right there too. We'll see how this plays out. But, I mean, what's your confidence level, understanding that we have the Saints coming up? It goes Saints, Eagles, Rams, Eagles. Rams are right in the thick of things too. You could potentially hold the tiebreaker over them as well with the win if you take care of business against both the Saints and the Rams. Aaron, I'm going to start with you here. What is your confidence level? And I just be real. Like, I just ask it to be real. Don't give me any false hope or don't be doomy and gloomy just for the sake of it. Give me your real, raw, uncut thoughts about a potential Giants playoff appearance in this season.
In the words of a former Giants defensive coordinator who won 2 Super Bowls, I'm just moving on to to the New Orleans Saints. No, I mean, it would be great if we make it to the playoffs. That's cool. If we don't, it doesn't really bother me. It's still a pretty successful season. I mean, I know I think his squad, we both said 11 wins this year. Obviously, it's not going to happen. But, I mean, I think the biggest test will be the Eagles. I just don't see us having any success. And we've had better teams lose to the Eagles. So I don't think this is a team this year that's going to break the streak of us not beating the Eagles. So for me to take a game by game, I want the young guys to get the reps in. So that way next year we're good to go. We don't have to do too many free agent acquisitions. I was looking at the quarterback market. It's it's okay. Like there's Jeff Okuda, Stephon Gilmore, Kendall Fuller, all those kind of guys if you want to bring them in. But yeah, I'm not gonna say I'm for the tank. I'm not gonna say yeah, going to the playoffs. I'm in that middle. So it doesn't. If we go, we go. If we don't, it is what it is.
I'm really kind of the same as Aaron. I feel like I'm right in the middle. 2 weeks ago, I kind of, again, I never want to see my team lose, but with how it was going and how the season was going, it kind of looked like the Giants were going to be in the top 3 conversation, in terms of draft picks. But look, I mean, with Philly, I really don't expect this Giants team to beat Philly this year. I think that, and even with the O line playing great, that defensive line for Philly is just that's a lot of firepower. That is a lot of firepower for any offensive line that's not named the Dallas Cowboys. That's a lot of firepower. I think the Eagles have looked human the past 2-ish weeks, but look at the teams that they were playing too. They were playing 2 of the best teams in the NFC, in the Dallas Cowboys and the San Francisco 49ers, which the Giants are not. So to me, I'd love to see the Giants beat Philly. I don't think it happens. Now with the Rams, though, the Rams is where I think it's kind of interesting, right? Because Matthew Stafford, he's still Matthew Stafford. Puka Nacua is having an excellent rookie season. You still have Aaron Donald over there. Sean McVay is still a great coach. He has that team fighting week in and week out. I think that's where things get interesting if they are able to somehow sneak out with the win against the Los Angeles Rams. Sorry. Because at least from what I saw against, the Ravens, I mean, yeah, I don't want to say it was luck that the Ravens won. It was an excellent play by the special teams unit, but the Rams had a pretty good game against the Ravens, I felt. And I thought that they really held their own for the most part. I thought that was one of their better games that they had this year, despite it being a loss. I don't want to overlook the Saints, but I do think that Green Bay was a harder competition than what the Saints are, especially when you look at the quarterback position. I've never seen, well, let me not say never. I haven't seen a fan base in quite some time boo their starting quarterback every time he touches the field. Like, it's insane. I feel like at some point they're going to be selling tomatoes, over there in the dome, and they're just going to start throwing shit at Derek Carr to get him off of the field. I know he had talked about how it hurt him that his wife cried that he was benched last year by the Raiders. She might cry again, Derek. And I'm praying for the city of New Orleans, and I'm praying for Derek Carr for what Wink Martindale is about to do to that man. I really, really am, with all due respect. But in terms of the playoffs, y'all know how I am. I'm a week-to-week person, man. I don't even know how next week going to look. But, yeah, I mean, would it be nice? Absolutely. I mean, you have 2 years back-to-back going to the playoffs. Let's say you tie. Let's say you split with Philly 1-2. Let's say you get a win against the Rams 2-3. So what? 5-8, 8-8. Yeah.
No, you can't go 8-8 anymore. It would be 8-9, right?
8-9, right?
Yeah,
8-9.
Yeah.
So you can call that winning culture if you like, but this team is fighting. But if we somehow lose every single game here on out, I'm not going to be upset either. So like I said with Aaron, I'm kind of in the middle. I'd love to see this team go to the playoffs. Who doesn't? That's more football. But if they don't, hey, we are 5-8 right now. So
yeah, let's eat those W's.
Hop off my dog Davis. He's one of my favorite players in the league. He is so funny. He's a great leader. I don't know how he's not starting right now for the Saints. But whether it's Jameis, whether it's I would have more fear, and take this with a grain of damn salt. I would have more fear if Taysom was starting more than Jameis or Derek Carr, because Taysom, I mean, Mr. Do-It-All, that's a threat. That, in my opinion, that's a threat right there. I mean, he could do everything, but nah, man. I got little to no faith for the Saints. That team don't scare me. Philly, that's Philly. I'm hoping, I'm hoping to damn God, excuse my language, apologies, but I hope that they don't embarrass us on Christmas Eve and that we can all have a nice Christmas, whatever holiday you celebrate with your family. And I hope that it's a good one. And I hope that the
Let's
Giants don't ruin your day if they embarrass us. That's all.
let's keep it a buck. Let's keep it a buck. I
That's
mean,
all.
the Eagles have owned us, bro. Like the Eagles have owned us. Like that was an embarrassment of a playoff performance last season in a divisional game against them. They have owned us for the better part of a decade. So, what I will say though is that I'm going to take an opposite stance of you, gentlemen, before you go, Rodney. Is that I'm full throttle, win 3 of 4, get some outside help, and let's make these damn playoffs. Because I'm sick and tired of talking about the draft. I'm full throttle, make the playoffs. I want to spew Tommy DeVito propaganda. I want to see the guys rally around Tommy DeVito. You see Darren Waller. He's coming back. He was asked about Tommy DeVito doing the little hand gesture himself. Saquon's been fully engaged in that as well. I need to see this team make the playoffs. I don't care what it takes. I don't care about the draft at this point. You're right there in the thick of things. Win 3 of 4. Somehow, some way, take one from the Eagles. Listen, who was it? Was it who was starting for the Giants when they needed to? They already clinched the playoffs last season, and the Eagles are playing for the 1 seed. Was it Davis Webb that was out there
It
for
was
the
Davis
Giants?
Webb. He gave
Davis
Kenny
Webb.
Galladay
Davis
his
Webb.
only
His
touchdown.
first
And
touchdown.
he gave the Eagles a run for their money. So I'm not saying that it's impossible, or I'm not saying it's not possible. Like I'm saying, it's Tommy DeVito. He can get it done. If Davis Webb could make it a respectable game, Tommy DeVito can, at least one of them. So, like I said, that's how I'll leave it at that. But Rodney, let me know your thoughts and opinions about a potential playoff appearance for these New York.
Playoffs. You say playoffs?
Oh, Jim Mora.
He said it with a capital
Wait.
P, Rodney.
Playoffs?
A capital P and an exclamation at the end of it.
I'm gonna have to side with Aaron and his squad on this. Whether we go or not, I don't really think it matters. Would it be a big surprise? Yeah, based off of how this season is gone. I don't like the Eagles. I can't stand the Eagles. Even more than that, I can't stand Eagle fans. Now, I can deal with a Dallas Cowboy fan. I can't really deal with a Eagles fan. In this sense, if we can at least steal one, just one, I'd be happy with that.
Facts.
All right, I'll be happy with that. Just one. Can we please beat the Saints? Do I think we can beat the Saints? Yes. Matthew Stafford, on the other hand, I mean, it all depends on which Matthew Stafford shows up. I mean, he's got Puka, he's got Cup.
Yeah. Cooper Cup.
So it just depends on which Matthew Stafford shows up. But Darius, he pretty much said exactly what it is. We can control our own destiny, just take care of the business, and we will be okay. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Just go out there. It's either you're playing for something, you're playing for nothing. So what difference does it make? You know, screw up somebody else's playoff hopes if you want to. Who cares? If you look at it in that aspect, just go out there and just play ball. So for me, it doesn't really matter. I didn't have high hopes once we lost 40-0 to Dallas. To me, it was like, okay, well, you know, I guess our season is kind of hit at this point, seeing that ass whooping that we got. But would it be nice if we went? By all means. So maybe I'm I'm being a little pessimistic or whatever the case may be. Very slightly optimistic. But with you and with Aaron and Chris, if we go, good. If not, well, I mean, we got draft talk. We still got to be able to talk about a QB at some point. So it is what it is, guys.
Listen, my New York Mets are not signing anybody right now for the MLB offseason. I need something to talk about, and that would be a Giant playoff appearance. So come on now. Jaden's is tuning in here saying playoffs? That was an elite entrance there, Rodney. I definitely do
That
love that.
was. That was.
What I will say for the people who really are, I guess, taking the stance of the draft pick potentially moving down. Not for nothing but if you do potentially make the playoffs, drop a couple slots in the draft, you do still have those 2 second rounders to package in terms of moving up. I will say that is a safety blanket. If the Giants really have someone in the first round that they love, they can package those picks. Now that's not ideal, right? I guess the ideal scenario is just to lose out and get both a draft pick you want and keep those 2 second rounders, or use those 2 second rounders to move up back into another first round pick, a second first round pick. But like I said, I'm just tired of it. Like, after seeing the Giants falter for so many years, and after the last Super Bowl run, only getting a taste of the playoffs twice in a decade, I'm gonna take a playoff appearance all day long. I don't care if we get blown out in the playoffs. I don't care. I'm gonna take a playoff appearance all day long. And I know that's not the popular option, but that's where I'll leave you all off at in terms of how I view these next 4 weeks for the New York Giants. Beat the Saints. I think the Packers, like you said, Chris, were stiffer competition than the Saints. Derek Carr, I had a chuckle to myself, and I guess people can say this about Daniel Jones and us giving him that contract, but I had a real chuckle when the Saints gave Derek Carr that contract, because he doesn't scare me or put fear into my heart, and the Giants shouldn't let him put fear into their hearts as well, whatsoever. The Rams are a little bit of a different story. I feel like the Rams are on the Packers' level in terms of the sort of toughness of competition, maybe a little bit more so with the weapons that they have on the outside, with Puka Nacua, with Kupp, and who's the running back over there that is
Kyren Williams
a,
from Virginia Tech.
Yes, exactly. Him as well. There you go. He's been performing really well this season as well. So, like I said, we'll see what happens. I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but I'm putting unrealistic expectations on the Giants just for my personal liking right now. And I know that you gentlemen here, Aaron, Rodney, and Chris, are taking a little bit more of a logical stance than I am, and that's okay. That's why I have you all on this podcast, to give your great takes and to even my irrationalness out. That's what it's all about. So, Chris says winning games could be a blessing in disguise, like in 19 when we drafted Andrew Todd. I was at that game. The Chase Young Bowl in Landover, Maryland. I was actually in attendance for that. I believe that was the game Daniel Jones threw for like 4 tutties and rushed in for 1, had 5 total touchdowns.
Oh, dang, you're
That
at
was an
that
OT
one?
win for the Giants. But
Yeah,
yeah,
that
man,
was
I
OT.
remember that.
Dang.
I remember that crystal clear. So 100% Darius, one game at a time. Let's focus on beating the Saints this weekend. 100%. Gents, this is all I had for today. We're at about hour 16 right now. Any final words before we give our closing remarks and get out of here?
Isaiah Simmons.
Yes,
Okay.
I concur.
Okay.
I concur.
Isaiah Simmons. Do you guys think we should bring him back?
Absolutely.
Yes.
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 Hardcore. Tommy Cutlets is no fugazi.
Enough said.
You got to bring him back.
I know Chris likes that one. Not you hit squad, Chris, but maybe you hit squad, Chris. But Chris K in the comments here. I know he's an Isaiah Simmons guy. That's his guy. So, yeah. Enough said with that. 100%.
He just there you go. Boom. That's my answer right there too. Hell yeah, bring him back. But no, yeah, I'm really excited to see how the Saints go. I'm excited to see the rest of the season, and let's try to take one for Philly. Let's really try to take one for Philly. I'm praying for John Michael Schmitz having to go against Jalen Carter and all them boys down there from Georgia. But let's see if the Cutlet magic continues.
That Georgia football is a little bit different than that Minnesota football, so we'll see what happens there.
It's a little different. Shoot. Tommy Cutlets is no fugazi.
Pasta la joule.
Yeah, let's take the New York mob and beat up on that Philly mob.
There you go. There you go. I like that one. I like that one.
It's a good one. That's a good one. Guys, thank you all for not only joining me, but thank you to the chat. I mean, everybody that showed out, that tuned in, dropped those comments. Coach, Chris, Darius, Mark, everybody, man. Like, even if you didn't tune in, even if you didn't drop those comments, Tommy tuned in too. I know Jay-Z was here. Everybody in the comments, man. These streams are so much more fun when we get these engagements and these comments. Subscribe to everyone's channel. Like we said, it's in the description down below, but subscribe to everyone's YouTube. Not only mine at CPNY Sports, not only Aaron's, who's my co-host at That's My Sports, but Rodney at the Big Blue Corner and Chris at Hit Squad Productions. I link them all in the description down below. Make sure you all are checking out all these guys' channels. They have truly great content as well, and you definitely won't regret it. And like I said, this whole Twitter thing, it shows when people join in on Twitter. That wasn't the case before StreamYard. If you're listening in on Twitter, you can drop comments as well, and I highly encourage you to do so. One of these days, I'll figure out how to stream this to my Instagram. It's a little bit more complex, but they just made that option available as well. So that's always on the table. So like I said, gents, Chris, Aaron, Rodney, all you guys for making some time today to end the weekend. Make sure you go ahead and do so. Absolutely. Darius, thank you so much. Appreciate you tuning in. Chris, thank you so much for tuning in. Everybody else that's tuning in, or if you're catching this on the rerun, I appreciate you for tuning in. Like I said, glass half full, half empty kind of vibe with the Giants right now. We don't know which way to lean. I know which way I'm leaning, but these gents don't know which way they're leaning so far. And it remains to be seen 1 week at a time. That's the common consensus here. 1 week at a time. And we'll see exactly what happens from here on out. But as always, let's go Giants. I am going to be in Lambeau Field this Sunday. So I'll be watching on my phone the Giants game, keeping up to date. My girlfriend's a Packers fan. I'll be in Wisconsin for that game against the Buccaneers. And we'll see how that works out. But as always, let's go Giants. I appreciate everyone tuning in. And like I said, make sure you all check out these fellow content creators here on these Giants spaces. You won't regret it. As always, let's go Giants. Game up against the Saints this weekend. We'll see how they do. And we'll definitely be coming out with an episode next week, a live stream to talk about the Saints game. Subscribe to the channels. And with that, hit that thumbs up. We're out of here. Peace.
We better not see you in no Green Bay hat, Chris. Better not see you in a Green Bay hat, man.
Actually, let me say one more thing before we head out. I know you said you know where you're headed, or excuse me, I know you said you know where you're leaning, Chris. I'm going to tell you where I'm leaning. Each week, I'm going to be leaning back, and I'm going to watch how this team plays. That's what I'm doing. Y'all be safe.
Absolutely. Be safe, y'all. Happy holidays. We'll try to see you before the holidays, but if we don't, happy holidays. And like I said, let's go Giants. Continuously rooting for the best outcome. And like I said,
go.
Peace.
Thank you.